There's a reason why the most powerful transformations in a Scorpio's life begin not with a bang, but with a whisper. A whisper that something or someone is slipping away. Not because you failed, not because you're being punished, but because your soul made a vow long before this moment. A vow that when something or someone no longer aligns with your truth, you will let it go. Even if it breaks your heart, even if the world doesn't understand, even if it feels like you're standing at the edge of yourself. And Scorpio, that moment is now. You may not have seen it coming, or perhaps you've been feeling it for weeks. The growing silence, the internal tension, the intuitive knowing that something is unraveling behind the scenes. This isn't a coincidence. This farewell that's drawing near, it was written in the stars long before your heart began to break. And no matter how hard you try to deny it, delay it, or distract yourself from it, you can't unfeel the truth that's rising from within. Because Scorpio, when the universe prepares you for your next chapter, it doesn't ask permission. It starts removing everything that cannot survive in the fire of your rebirth. And now the question becomes, will you cling to the familiar even as it decays in your hands? Or will you step into the unknown, trembling but true, and become the version of you that your soul has been begging for? Because this goodbye, it is sacred, it is inevitable, and it may just be the key that unlocks everything you've been secretly waiting for. Stay with me until the end of this message. Because if you leave too soon, you may miss the moment where everything finally makes sense. Let's begin. Part 1. The whisper before the storm, Scorpio. Before the universe roars, it always whispers. And lately you've been hearing something, haven't you? Not through words, but in the way your chest tightens when you're around certain people. In the silence between your thoughts, the sudden desire to distance yourself from places you once felt safe. You might not have spoken it aloud, not yet, but inside, something ancient is stirring. An invisible shift, a spiritual contraction before expansion. You feel it when you wake up with a heaviness that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from soul fatigue, the exhaustion of carrying things that no longer belong to the person you're becoming. Let me be clear. This is not depression. This is not confusion. This is sacred agitation. It is your soul saying, enough, it's time. Some people will tell you that change begins with excitement, a bright light, a vision, a new path. But that's not how Scorpio transforms. Scorpio begins with the ending, the crack, the crumbling, the internal knowing that something must die before something greater can live. You're not imagining it, you're not being dramatic, you're not too emotional. You are right on time. Perhaps it started subtly, a conversation that left you drained, a familiar routine that suddenly felt foreign, a person you've loved, who now feels like a stranger living inside a memory. And maybe you've tried to resist it, because let's be honest, Scorpios don't give up easily. You stay, you fight, you dive deeper, you fix. But this time, something's different. It's not broken because of you. It's not meant to be fixed. It's meant to be released. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a Scorpio woman I worked with told me about the night her entire identity collapsed. She was a respected lawyer, married for over a decade, mother of 2. Her life looked successful from the outside, polished, predictable, protected. But something in her began to ache. First, it was her job. Then her marriage. Then her very name felt like a costume. One night, after arguing with her husband over nothing, she walked out into the backyard, barefoot in the moonlight, and whispered to herself, I don't know who I am anymore, but I know I can't be this version of me another year. That was the beginning. The whisper. Within months, everything she'd built, career, marriage, house, dissolved. Not because she was broken, but because her soul refused to be boxed in anymore. She didn't lose her life, she shed it. And in its place, she birthed a new one. One that matched her truth, not her performance. She later told me the goodbye I feared the most was the doorway I was born to walk through. Scorpio, I share this with you because you might be standing at the edge of your own sacred goodbye. It doesn't have to be loud, it doesn't have to be dramatic, but it will be real. and it will be unavoidable, and it may be the most powerful decision of your life. So here's your question. What part of you is quietly begging to be let go? Is it a relationship where you shrink yourself to keep the peace? A job that drains your spirit for the sake of stability? A version of yourself that was built to survive, but not to thrive? You don't have to answer now, but you do need to feel the question. Because in part 2, we will talk about why the stars are aligning now, not next year, not someday, but now to support your letting go, and how the universe, your oldest ally, is orchestrating this farewell not as a punishment, but as the initiation your soul has been secretly praying for. Part 2, when the universe stops waiting. Scorpio, have you ever noticed that some moments in life don't ask for your readiness, they demand your response? The universe doesn't always wait for us to be comfortable, it waits for us to be aligned, and the alignment is happening now. You see, most people move through life according to calendars and clocks, but Scorpio, you're not most people. You were born under the rulership of Pluto, the celestial force of death, rebirth, hidden power, and truth that refuses to stay buried. And Pluto doesn't operate on human timing. It waits for cosmic timing. And that timing just arrived. There's an astrological doorway opening right now, one that won't come again for years. A rare solar alignment with Pluto, your ruling planet. And this isn't some abstract horoscope fluff. This is the Phoenix portal. An energetic window so precise, so spiritually surgical that it activates your karmic contract in this lifetime. It's the moment where your inner fire meets divine timing. And for a Scorpio, this can only mean one thing. Transformation is no longer optional. Let's be honest, you've already outgrown your current reality. You can feel it in your body. You've been tolerating things you used to love. You've been questioning things you used to accept. And now the universe is no longer whispering, it's calling you out. This energy isn't here to suggest change. It's here to burn away anything that dilutes your truth. And yes, it might feel like chaos, but what's really dissolving is the illusion that you were ever meant to live small. Here's what's important. You're not being punished, you're being repositioned, you're not losing control, you're gaining clarity. But the universe can't place new blessings into hands that are still clenched around what's dying. So you're being asked, maybe even forced, to let go. Let go of the comfort zone that has calcified into a cage, the relationships that no longer speak your language, the responsibilities you took on to feel worthy, but now feel like soul weight. Because Scorpio, the next version of your life can't begin until you bury the ghost of who you used to be. I remember counseling a Scorpio man who had spent 2 decades in the military. He was disciplined, composed, respected, but inside hollow. When he retired, he told me, "I'm free now, but I don't know who I am without the uniform." And I looked at him and said, "That uniform was your armor, but it's not your identity. Now you get to meet the part of you that's never needed to fight, to be powerful." Tears streamed down his face, not out of weakness, but because for the first time he was meeting himself without the mask. Scorpio, this is your invitation now, to lay down your armor, to stop performing, to let the masks melt in the fire of your truth. Because the stars, yes, literally, the stars are aligning to strip you of what is false, so you can rise as what is real. And when the universe gets this specific, this aligned, you don't delay. You don't say, maybe next month. You don't say, once I'm ready. Because the truth is, you're already ready. The only thing left is the decision to trust it. In part 3, we will go deeper into what's physically happening in your body and energy field, why you might feel tired, irritable, raw, or even emotionally disoriented right now, and how all of that is not dysfunction, but part of the great Scorpio awakening. You are not collapsing, you are clearing space for your next incarnation, and it's closer than you think. Part 3, the body remembers what the mind denies. Scorpio, when a soul like yours begins to evolve, the body speaks first. Before the mind can label it, before the ego can explain it, the body whispers the truth. I am not okay with this version of reality anymore. Have you felt it? The sudden waves of exhaustion even after a full night's sleep, the bursts of energy that come out of nowhere only to crash within hours. The tightening in your chest during conversation that once felt safe, the inexplicable irritation at people or places you used to tolerate. This isn't burnout, this isn't hormonal, this is spiritual detox. Your body, your sacred vessel, is shedding density. It's releasing old stories. It's recalibrating to a higher frequency. And it's doing all of this before your mind has even caught up. Let's break this down. When you hold on to relationships, jobs, or identities that are misaligned with your truth, they don't just sit in your head. They sit in your nervous system. They live in your fascia. They weigh on your heart. And when your soul says it's time to let go, but your habits say, let's hold on, your body becomes the battleground. This is why you might feel tension in the neck or shoulders, carrying the burden of unspoken decisions, chest tightness or shallow breathing, resisting the emotional release of grief, digestive issues, struggling to digest your current reality, dreams that feel too vivid or disturbing, your subconscious flushing out suppressed energy. You are not malfunctioning. You are metabolizing your past. And this process, it's not clean, it's not linear, it's not always gentle. But Scorpio, when have you ever chosen the easy path? You were not built for comfort, you were built for transformation. And right now, your transformation is not just energetic, it's biological. Let me tell you about Elijah, a Scorpio client who was going through what doctors called mystery fatigue. Blood work was normal, heart was strong, no diagnosis. But every morning he woke up with the weight of 1,000 emotions in his body. He told me, I feel like my soul is processing things I haven't even lived yet. And I said, maybe your soul is processing what you've never been allowed to grieve. That sentence cracked something open. He started crying not over one specific event, but over the years of pretending to be okay. Scorpio, your emotions are not weaknesses. They're sacred indicators. When you feel anger out of nowhere, it's not rage. It's truth that has been caged too long. When you feel sadness flood your chest, it's not despair. It's your heart being honest for the first time in years. When you feel restless, like you don't belong in your own skin, it's not anxiety. It's evolution in motion. You see, the chrysalis, the cocoon, is not a resting place. It's a transformation chamber. And inside it, everything that the caterpillar was dissolves completely. It doesn't become the butterfly, it dies into it. And that's where you are right now, Scorpio, in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Messy, mysterious, magical. In part 4, we'll explore what this transformation will mean for your relationships, why certain connections may suddenly feel hollow, why your inner circle is shifting, and why that isn't loneliness. It's sacred realignment. Until then, Scorpio, breathe, drink water, move your body with kindness, and let your system know it's okay to let go now. We're not dying, we're being reborn. Part 4, the silence between souls. Scorpio, as you evolve, so do your relationships. Not all of them will survive the fire. And that's not abandonment, that's alignment. You may have already noticed it. The friends who used to get you suddenly feel distant. The conversations that once flowed now fall flat. Even your partner, the one who used to read you like a map, feels like they're speaking from a different page. And maybe deep down you've started to ask, is something wrong with me? Why am I pushing people away? Why am I suddenly so alone? But the truth is, Scorpio, you're not pushing them away. You're simply no longer shrinking to stay connected. You see, when you were in survival mode, you tolerated half-truths, small talk, conditional love. You kept your darkness polite and your power hidden because it made others feel more comfortable. But not anymore. Now your frequency is rising, your soul is stretching, and the people who were drawn to your older vibration can't meet you in this new one. It's not personal, it's physics, it's energetic divergence. Imagine this. You're in a room playing soft jazz. Someone else is blasting heavy metal. At some point, the noise becomes unbearable for both of you. Not because either genre is wrong, but because you're not in tune anymore. That's what's happening to your relationships. The soul contracts you once signed. Some of them have expired. Let me tell you about Maren, a Scorpio woman I coached through a major spiritual awakening. She was married to a man who adored her, but only the version of her that didn't question anything. When she started meditating, journaling, exploring her inner voice, he said, "I miss the old you. You used to be more predictable." And she looked at him not with anger, but clarity. She said, "I miss the old me too," but she was surviving, not living. That conversation was the beginning of the end. Not because they hated each other, but because the contract had been fulfilled. He helped her stay grounded. She helped him open up. But once the lessons were complete, the bond began to dissolve. Not in chaos, not in cruelty, but in quiet, sacred release. Scorpio, not every love is meant to last a lifetime. Some are meant to awaken us, challenge us, stretch us, and then let us go. And in this moment of deep spiritual rearrangement, you will find yourself outgrowing connections like old skin. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will feel disorienting. But no, it's not a punishment. It's soul editing. The universe is pruning your relationships so that what remains is true, reciprocal, and resonant. And let's speak plainly. You may grieve people who are still alive. You may miss memories that once gave you meaning. You may want to hold on even when your spirit begs to let go. That's human. That's Scorpio. You love with depth and you release with reverence. But please remember this, just because a connection is painful to leave doesn't mean it's sacred to keep. Some people were chapters, but you are the whole story. In part 5, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how to release with grace, not with guilt, not with shame, but with ritual, reverence, and full-bodied truth. Because the act of letting go is not just emotional, it is a spiritual initiation. And done consciously, it becomes your portal to a life you never thought was possible. Part 5, the art of letting go with power. Scorpio, letting go is not weakness, it is a ritual of strength. And if there is one sign in the zodiac who knows how to die and be reborn with sacred intensity, it's you. But still the truth remains. No matter how evolved you are, releasing something you once loved is one of the most excruciatingly human experiences you'll ever have, especially when that something or someone once felt like your entire world. Let's make one thing clear. Letting go does not mean pretending it didn't matter. It does not mean rushing into positivity. It does not mean erasing the story. Letting go true. Letting go means honoring what was, feeling it fully, thanking it for what it gave you. And then placing it gently at the altar of your past. Not to shame it, not to glorify it, but to say, you served your purpose and now I am free. You don't need closure from the other person. You don't need perfect understanding. You don't need everything to make sense. What you need is a sacred ending, and that you can create. Here's how. A simple Scorpio release ritual. You don't need incense or candles or a full moon, though those things help. What you need is presence, intention, and truth. 1. Create a private space. Sit somewhere you won't be disturbed. Bring a notebook or simply your breath. 2. Call the energy to the surface. Think of the person, job, identity, belief, whatever you're ready to release. Let the memories rise. Let the emotions come. Don't edit. 3. Speak it aloud, even if you whisper. Say something like, you were once a part of me. You gave me joy. You gave me lessons. You shaped me. But I am not who I was when I first met you. And you are not what I need going forward. I release you now, not with resentment, but with reverence. 4 end with gratitude. Say, thank you. Thank you for being part of my becoming. 5, breathe, pause, be still. Let the silence land. That's where the energy begins to move. I've seen Scorpio souls do this ritual and tell me afterward, I didn't even realize how much I was carrying until I put it down. Because here's the truth, Scorpio. We don't always cling out of love. We cling out of fear. Fear that if we let go, nothing better will come. But that fear is a lie. Let me tell you about Adrian, a Scorpio, who couldn't let go of a toxic friendship. Every time he tried to distance himself, guilt crept in. They were there for me when no one else was, he'd say. I owe them loyalty. But when we dug deeper, we uncovered the real reason. He wasn't loyal to the friend. He was loyal to the version of himself who once needed that friend to survive. And once he released that old version of himself, the friendship unraveled quietly, peacefully, naturally. And guess what? Something better did come. Not immediately, but undeniably. New connections, new energy, more aligned, more reciprocal, more true. Scorpio, this is what happens when you release with power. You stop negotiating with your soul. You stop shrinking for comfort. You stop apologizing for outgrowing what no longer feeds you. You become clear. You become sovereign. You become you. In part 6, we'll explore what happens after the release, the space in between the void. That strange, silent, spiritual pause where nothing is certain, except that something new is coming. And Scorpio, that space, that void, is not empty. It is sacred incubation. So rest. The next chapter is rising. Part 6, the sacred pause between death and rebirth. Scorpio, what happens after you let go? Not the letting go itself, not the goodbye, but the after. The silence, the strange, disorienting stillness that follows the fire. When you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Welcome to the sacred pause. This is the phase almost no one talks about. Why? Because it's uncomfortable, it's invisible. It offers no certainty, no answers, no guarantees. But make no mistake, this is where the real alchemy happens. Let me describe it to you. You've released the relationship, the identity, the role. You feel lighter, but also lost. Your schedule is open, but your purpose feels blurry. You're not in pain, but you're not quite alive either. Everything is still, and your ego starts whispering, you made a mistake. Go back. At least the old life was familiar. This is the temptation, to turn around, to reattach, to numb the void. But Scorpio, listen closely. Do not rush this phase, because the void is not a punishment. It is sacred incubation. You are not empty, you are being emptied. Not to punish, but to prepare, because what's coming next cannot coexist with what just left. And if you try to fill this space too soon, you'll only delay your evolution. I once spoke with a Scorpio woman named Amani. She had just left a 10-year career that no longer aligned with her soul. For weeks, she couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from pure energetic discomfort. She wasn't sad, she wasn't afraid, she was just suspended, floating in the unknown. She told me, it feels like I'm in the middle of a story with no plot. I looked at her and said, no, you're not in the middle, you're in the cauldron, and the story is writing you now. Scorpio, the cauldron is part of your archetype. You are the sign of deep transformation. And transformation isn't tidy. The phoenix doesn't go from fire to flying in one breath. It rises from ash, and those ashes, they hold the final remnants of your past. They're sacred, but you're not meant to build your future from them. You're meant to rise above them. So what do you do in the sacred pause? Not much. But that not much is everything. You rest. Not because you're lazy, but because your energy is rebuilding from scratch. You listen to your dreams, your body, The symbols that show up when you least expect, you trust. That even if you don't know what's next, your higher self already does. This is not a phase to force anything. This is a phase to recalibrate. Think of a seed planted in the dark. It doesn't panic. It doesn't claw upward immediately. It rests. It gathers. It prepares for emergence. And so must you. In part 7, we will step into the moment when light returns, when something new begins to form in your external life. But this time, not built from fear, survival, or ego, but from truth. Because Scorpio, your next chapter is not a repeat, it's a revelation, and you're almost ready to receive it. Part 7, the light that returns is your own Scorpio. There comes a moment after the release, after the stillness, after the sacred pause, where the silence begins to shimmer, where a thought rises not from fear, but from clarity, where your heart once heavy begins to beat with purpose again. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily, quietly, unmistakably. This is the moment you realize you didn't lose yourself. You met yourself. And the person you're meeting now, they've never been here before. Scorpio, the light is returning. But here's the twist, it's not coming from outside of you, it's coming from within you. This isn't someone saving you. This isn't luck striking. This isn't the universe rewarding you for enduring suffering. This is the natural, inevitable result of alignment. When you release what isn't yours, your true self returns. And with that return comes magnetic clarity. Suddenly, you no longer crave the things that once numbed you. You no longer tolerate relationships that drain you. You no longer feel guilty for wanting more, needing less, or saying no. You begin to act differently, not because you're trying, but because your soul has rewritten the script. It's subtle but radical. You eat differently, speak differently, move through the world with a new rhythm. You don't seek permission, you embody your truth. And the world begins to respond not to your past self, but to this new frequency. Let me tell you about Jasper, a Scorpio man who once defined himself through his job as a corporate executive. Power, pressure, paychecks. That was his identity until it collapsed. For months, he felt lost, empty, irrelevant. But then one morning, after months of stillness, he told me, "I don't want to be important anymore. I want to be real." He didn't chase a new title. He created a mentorship program for boys with no fathers, something he dreamed of in college, but buried under ambition. And he said, "I finally feel alive again. But more than that, I feel like myself." Scorpio, your next chapter isn't about reinvention, it's about reclamation. Reclaiming the parts of you that were silenced. Reclaiming the voice that learned to stay quiet. Reclaiming the joy that got sacrificed for survival. You're not building a new life. You're building from truth, the kind you had to go through the fire to remember. And that truth, it attracts everything that's meant for you. This is why right now, even if things still feel a bit uncertain, you may start noticing new people entering your field who feel like soul family. Opportunities you didn't chase, they just appear. Ideas and visions that feel like whispers from your future self. You're no longer forcing alignment, you are the alignment, and the universe responds to that. In part 8, our final chapter, we will tie it all together. We'll explore what this journey has really been about and the sacred responsibility that comes with becoming your truest self. Because Scorpio rising isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new legacy. And you're ready for it now. Part 8, the legacy of your rebirth. Scorpio, you've walked through fire, you've surrendered what you once clung to, you've made peace with the silence, and now you've begun to rise not as a copy of your past, but as a living, breathing embodiment of your deepest truth. So what now? Now, you lead, not by forcing, not by fixing, not by preaching, but by being. By standing in your light with the same grace you once stood in your darkness. Because Scorpio, your rebirth was never just about you. It was about every silent soul who's been watching you from the shadows, wondering if it's safe to let go. And now, You show them that it is. You see, the world doesn't need more polished personas. It doesn't need more people performing healing. It needs those who've been shattered and chose to rise anyway. It needs those who've walked through loss, betrayal, identity, death, and instead of becoming bitter, became sovereign. That's you. You are no longer hiding your depth, no longer apologizing for your intensity, no longer shrinking to fit the mold. You are the phoenix in motion, and that movement inspires revolutions, not through words, but through presence. Let me remind you of something. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You honored the death, you endured the void, you met the light and realized it was always yours. Now you hold the wisdom of every version you've ever been. The naive one, the wounded one, the warrior, the ghost, the flame. And with that wisdom comes responsibility. Because now that you've tasted truth, you can no longer live a lie. Now that you've embodied alignment, you can no longer betray yourself. And now that you've seen what's possible beyond the fall, you become the map for others to find their own way out. This is your legacy, Scorpio, not the titles, not the followers, not the validation, but the fact that you turned your pain into power, your grief into grace, your endings into invitations. And from this moment on, every choice you make, every boundary you uphold, every truth you speak, ripples outward, activating others to rise. So let me ask you as we close this journey, will you dim your light again so others don't feel uncomfortable? Or will you let it blaze and show the world what rebirth really looks like? Because now you are no longer becoming, you are. And that presence, that power, that truth, it is unshakable. Life lesson, the final breath. Here's the lesson Scorpio teaches us all. Everything you're afraid to lose was never meant to define you. When you let go with reverence, you don't become less, you become clearer. You don't abandon yourself to keep something. You honor yourself and attract what honors you in return. And in that space of courage, clarity, and surrender, you become unstoppable. So take a breath. Feel your soul in your chest. This is what freedom feels like. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not waiting. You've arrived, Scorpio. If something inside you stirred as you listened, a memory, a knowing, a quiet tear, then this wasn't just a message. It was a reminder from your soul. And here on the path to Buddha wisdom, we don't speak to your surface. We speak to the part of you that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. You are not going through this transformation alone. Across oceans and cities, there are others, Scorpios like you, standing on the same edge, facing the same silence, asking the same question. Is it safe to let go now? And your answer, your story might become their permission. So, if this message found you in your moment of shift, leave a comment below and speak your truth. What are you ready to release? And who are you ready to become? Your voice spoken from the ashes might be the spark someone else needs to rise. And if your heart whispered yes while listening, then don't walk this path alone. Subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, where every message is medicine, every story is sacred, and your evolution is not just witnessed, it's honored. The next chapter is rising, and it belongs to you.